The bar was loud that night, not just with music or clinking glasses, but with the kind of energy you can feel when people are testing each other. When something's simmering right under the surface, a Friday night in a small town, the kind of bar where the neon lights buzz, where the pool tables are always full, and where the regulars lean against the counter as if it's a second home. And in the middle of it all, sat a woman who didn't belong. Not that she looked out of place in the usual sense, she was simple. Maybe even plain by some people's standards. Faded flannel shirt, jeans, hair tied back like she didn't put much thought into impressing anyone, but that was the very reason she stood out. In a room full of people trying too hard to be noticed, she was the only one who didn't seem to care. She sat quietly sipping from a glass of water, not beer. And that alone made her a target. The bikers noticed first. They always do. When you ride in groups like that, you're not just riding motorcycles, you're riding an image, an identity. You live for dominance, for eyes on you. Of them spotted her. The simple woman sitting like the chaos didn't touch her. He felt it. He felt that itch. The one that tells men like him that respect isn't earned by kindness, but by force. He walked over. He was taller than most. Rough around the edges, with tattoos climbing up his neck and scars scattered across his arms. His boots hit the floor heavy, each step echoing louder than the jukebox. "Hey, sweetheart," he said, loud enough so half the bar turned their heads. "You lost? Or just plain dress up for the big kids' table?" The woman didn't answer. Right away, she didn't flinch. She just took another sip of her water, placed the glass down slowly, and looked at him. Her eyes weren't frightened, but they weren't confrontational either. Calm, controlled, and that drove him insane. He slammed his hand on the table. The whole glass rattled, spilling water across the wood. "I'm talking to you," he barked. The bar got quieter, not silent, but quieter. People pretended to look away, but you could feel the shift, every ear tuned in. Finally, she spoke. Her voice was soft but steady. "I heard you," that's all she said. The biker smirked, leaning closer. "Think you're better than us? Sitting here with your little glass of water like you don't stink like the rest of us? What's the deal? You mute? Or just stuck up?" He laughed, but it was the kind of laugh meant to draw others in. And it worked. Two more bikers peeled themselves off the wall and circled closer. Now she was surrounded. But even then, she didn't show fear. If anything, she leaned back in her chair, as if making herself more comfortable, and that's when he did it. In one swift, aggressive motion, he reached forward and yanked at her flannel shirt. Buttons popped. The fabric tore. Gasps echoed across the room as her shirt slid off her shoulder, exposing something no one expected. A tattoo. Not just any tattoo. The unmistakable, proud emblem of the United States Marine Corps. Bold, precise. Carved into her skin not as decoration, but as history. The biker froze. The whole bar froze. Because that's the thing about Marines. Even long after they've served, even long after they've taken off the uniform, the identity doesn't leave. That emblem doesn't just mark the skin, it marks the soul. And everyone in that room knew it. For the first time all night, the biker looked unsure. His hand hovered, still clutching the ripped fabric, but his eyes darted between the tattoo and the woman's face. And her face, oh, her face, it didn't just show calm anymore. It showed steel. A silent dare. "Go ahead," she said quietly, her voice low, carrying more weight than his shouting ever could. "Finish what you started." The room held its breath, because in that moment everyone knew this wasn't just some simple woman. She wasn't prey. She wasn't some quiet stranger passing through town. She was a Marine, fighter. Someone who had seen things and survived things that made men like him look like children throwing tantrums. The bikers' buddies shuffled uncomfortably. A few of them muttered, "Come on, man, let it go." But pride is a dangerous thing. And pride in a bar, in front of an audience, is a loaded gun. He clenched his jaw. "Tattoo don't scare me," he growled, trying to recover the dominance he felt slipping away. "You think that ink makes you special?" The woman leaned forward, locking her eyes into his. "No," she said, "it's not the ink. It's what it means." And in that instant, The silence became heavier than the noise had ever been, because everyone in that bar, from the bikers to the regulars to the bartender wiping the counter, they all felt it. That weight. That truth. The biker stepped back, but only half an inch. His fists clenched. His pride burned, but his courage faltered. And the woman, she didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't break eye contact. She had flipped the entire bar. Without raising her voice, without standing up, without throwing a single punch. The biker's pride was bleeding, not from fists or blows, but from something far worse: humiliation. That emblem on her shoulder, burned into her skin with meaning, had sliced deeper than any blade could. He could feel the eyes of the bar still on him, watching, judging, and for a man like him, being watched and judged was more dangerous than a knife at his throat. He stumbled back half a step, trying to shake off the weight of her gaze. His buddies muttered uneasy words, trying to coax him away from her table. "Come on, man, it ain't worth it," one whispered, while another tapped him on the shoulder as if to ground him. But the louder voice, the one inside his head, screamed louder, "Don't you back down. Not in front of them, not in front of her." His jaw tightened, his fists curled, and then he smiled. Not the kind of smile that came from joy. This was darker, sharper, meant to mask the storm raging inside him. "You think you've proved something?" he sneered. "That tattoo don't make you untouchable. You're still just one woman in a bar full of men. And one thing about men like me, we don't scare easy." But his voice cracked on the last word, betraying the truth he was trying to hide. The woman didn't move, didn't blink. She just stared back with eyes that had seen deserts burn at midnight, cities crumble under fire, and brothers and sisters fall beside her. Compared to that, this bar was nothing. Compared to that, this man was small. "You're right," she said softly. "One woman, but not just a woman." That line cut deeper than a knife, and the room seemed to shrink around. Then the bartender shifted uneasily, glancing toward the door, ready to call in help if things got worse. A couple in the corner stopped pretending to play pool and leaned on their cues, watching the scene unfold like a movie they couldn't look away from. Every single person was caught between fear of what might erupt and fascination at the strange balance of power on display. The biker didn't want balance. He wanted control. With a sudden burst, he shoved the table hard. Glass tipped, water spilled, and the chair beneath her screeched across the floor. Gasps shot through the crowd. For the first time, the woman moved, but not in fear. She rose, slowly, deliberately, as if the air itself made way for her, standing. She wasn't the tallest in the room, but height didn't matter. Presence did, and she had it. Her frame was steady, her eyes locked, her torn shirt hanging loose enough for that tattoo to blaze like fire in the low light. The biker took another step forward. His chest puffed, trying to drown his fear with volume. "You think that uniform makes you better than me? Makes you more of a person? You don't know nothing about us? About me?" The woman tilted her head. "Maybe, but I know this. You don't touch someone unless you're ready to deal with what comes after." Her words weren't loud, but they didn't need to be. They struck like thunder in the silence. He snapped. His fist came forward, wild, swinging at her face. Gasps. Erupted, someone shouted. A chair clattered to the ground. But before his punch could land, she shifted, smooth, swift. A move born from muscle memory carved by years of training. She caught his wrist midair. The room went dead silent. The biker froze in disbelief, his arms suspended by her grip. He tried to yank it free, but her hand locked like iron. The louder he grunted, the calmer she looked. And then, with one sharp twist, she forced his arm downward, slamming it onto the table edge. The crack of bone and wood colliding echoed through the bar. He howled in pain, dropping to one knee, clutching his arm. His buddies surged forward, but the woman's glare alone stopped them cold. There was something primal in it, not just the look of a fighter, but the look of someone who'd stared down worse than death and walked away. "You think this is a game?" she said, her voice rising now, each word cutting like steel. "You think strength is about scaring people in bars? It's about tearing clothes and throwing fists? You've never seen real strength. Real strength isn't in breaking. It's in protecting." Her words rolled across the room, heavy and raw. People shifted in their seats, uncomfortable because deep down they knew she wasn't just talking to him. She was talking to all of them. Every person who had ever watched someone weaker be pushed down and said nothing. The biker staggered too. His feet, his pride shattered, his body trembling with rage. His buddies looked to him, waiting for a signal. But all he could do was curse under his breath and spit on the floor. "You got lucky," he hissed. The woman's eyes narrowed. Luck had nothing to do with it. The air in the bar thickened. Tension pressed against the walls like a storm waiting to break them. People held their breath, not sure if more violence was coming or if it had just been avoided. But then something unexpected happened. A man in the back, quiet, older, his hair gray at the edges, stood up. Slowly, he lifted his shirt sleeve, revealing faded ink, the same emblem. "The Marine Corps?" Another man near the jukebox raised his hand. "Army," he said softly, showing his own mark, and then another. "Navy." The room began to shift. It wasn't just her anymore, it was them. It's veterans who had been silent, blending into the crowd, suddenly stepping forward, as if her courage had unlocked theirs. The bikers looked around, realizing the numbers weren't in their favor anymore. This wasn't just one woman. This was a wall of people who had given more, lost more, and endured more than any of them could imagine. The leader's bravado cracked completely. His buddies pulled at his jacket, whispering, "Let it go, man. Let's get out of here." But pride is poison, and poison runs deep. He glared at her one last time, his chest heaving, hatred pouring from his eyes. But he didn't step forward again. He turned, shoving his way through the crowd, his gang trailing behind him. The door slammed open, letting in a rush of cold night air, and then slammed shut. The bar exhaled. The woman sat back down. She didn't look around for approval. She didn't gloat. She simply pulled her shirt tighter around her shoulder, covering the tattoo again, and picked up her glass of water. No one dared to speak at first. But when the silence finally broke, it wasn't with fear, it was with respect. Glasses lifted. Heads nodded. Eyes softened. And though she didn't ask for it, though she didn't need it, the room gave her what she had already earned long before that night: honor. The bar was quieter now, but it wasn't the kind of quiet that comes from peace. It was the silence that follows a storm, heavy, restless, with the memory of thunder still vibrating in the air. People glanced around, exchanging small nods, like they had just witnessed something sacred. But in the center of it all, the woman sat still, shoulders squared, her glass half full, her eyes steady. She hadn't come here looking for trouble. She hadn't come here to prove anything. Yet without ever raising her fist in anger, she had reminded an entire room what respect really meant. But the night wasn't over. Outside, in the cold air beyond the neon glow, the bikers lingered. Rage clung to them like smoke. The leader paced, holding his injured wrist, his pride burning hotter than the pain. His gang hovered close, whispering about what had just happened. They couldn't believe it. Their leader, the man they thought untouchable, has been humbled in front of everyone. He stopped pacing and spat into the dirt. "This ain't over," he growled. His voice was sharp, like a blade scraping against steel. "Nobody humiliates me like that. Nobody." One of his men shifted nervously. "Man, she's not just some random woman. You saw that tattoo? You saw the way she moved? She's dangerous." The leader's eyes flared. "I don't care what she was, Marine, soldier. I don't give a damn. She made me look weak, and if I let that stand, then what the hell am I?" Silence. They all knew what was coming. Driving him, and pride doesn't stop until it crashes. Back inside, the woman knew the night wasn't finished. She could feel it. Years of training had sharpened instincts you can't switch off, instincts that prick at your skin when danger lingers nearby. She didn't flinch, didn't leave. She stayed calm, sipping her water, as though every second that passed was on her terms. Not theirs. The bartender slid a fresh glass across the counter, his voice low. You want me to call the sheriff? She shook her head. Not yet. Answer wasn't bravado. It wasn't arrogance. It was calculation. She knew the kind of men she was dealing with. Call the law too soon, and they'd scatter like rats. It's only to come back later, nastier. But no one was watching. No, this had to end here, and it would. The door creaked open. Every head turned. The bikers stepped back inside. Their leader first. His face was darker now, his pride fueling every step. Behind him, the others fanned out, blocking the exits, their boots heavy against the old wood floor. The crowd stiffened, chairs scraping as people shifted. The air thickened with dread. The woman stood slowly. She didn't hide. She didn't cower. She faced them head on. The leader pointed at her, his injured wrist trembling with rage. You think you embarrassed me? You think you won? You ain't won a damn thing. It's out there in the real world. People like you don't matter. Marines. Soldiers, all of you, just pawns who get forgotten when the fight's done. But me, I'm still here. I own this town. And tonight I'm talking back my respect. His words stung, not because they were true, but because they dripped with the kind of ignorance she had heard too many times before. People who never served, who never sacrificed, spitting on the ones who had. The woman's jaw tightened, but her voice stayed steady. Respect isn't taken, it's earned. You've spent your life confusing fear with respect. He snarled, lunging forward. His men followed, their presence suffocating the room. Her fear swept across the crowd, but the veterans who had revealed themselves earlier didn't sit back this time. Chairs scraped, boots pounded, and one by one, they stood. The army vet moved first, stepping between the woman and the bikers. His shoulders squared, his hands clenched, his voice steady. Tonight, the Navy man followed, his eyes sharp, his posture unyielding. Then another, and another, until the woman wasn't standing alone anymore. She was flanked by a wall of men and women who had worn uniforms once, who had carried weight that civilians couldn't begin to imagine. The bikers faltered. Their leader snarled, but his steps slowed as the weight of what stood before him sank in. This wasn't just about one Marine anymore. It was about every soldier, every sailor, every fighter who knew the taste of sacrifice. Still, his pride screamed. He couldn't back down, not with the whole bar watching, so he charged. The clash was quick, brutal, and unforgettable. The woman didn't waste a move. She sidestepped, grabbed his jacket, and spun him into the pool table with a crash that shook the walls. His men lunged forward, but the veterans met them, firm and unyielding. The army vet tackled one to the ground, locking his arm in a hold that had him screaming. The Navy man swung his fist into another, dropping him with a single strike. It wasn't chaos. It wasn't a bar fight. It was precision, discipline, training. Every move the veterans made had purpose. Every strike was controlled. And the bikers, they were nothing but noise. Rage without focus. Within minutes, it was over. The bikers lay groaning on the floor, their leader pinned by the Marine's knee pressed into his chest, her hand gripping his collar tight, his eyes wide with shock. Searched hers, desperate for a shred of mercy. She leaned down, her voice low, but sharp enough to pierce every ear in the room. This is your last lesson. Fear will fade. Violence will fade. But the respect you've lost tonight, you'll never get it back. 'Cause respect can't be forced. It can only be given. And nobody here is giving it to you. She released him. Standing tall, her shadow long under the neon lights, he gasped for air, scrambling back, shame carved into every line of his face. His gang helped him to his feet, dragging themselves toward the door. This time, no one followed. No one shouted. No one tried to stop them. The door slammed shut, and their presence was gone. Silence filled the bar again, but this time it wasn't. Heavy, it was reverent. The woman adjusted her torn shirt, pulling the fabric tight across her shoulder once more. She didn't need the tattoo visible anymore. Everyone had seen it. Everyone had felt it. The bartender lifted a glass, his voice soft but proud. Semper Fi. And the room echoed with quiet murmurs of respect. Not applause, not cheers, something deeper, something real. The woman nodded once. No smile, no flourish. Just a quiet acknowledgement. She sat back down, took her glass of water and raised it slightly, as if in a silent toast, not to herself, but to everyone who had stood with her. And in that moment, the bar wasn't just a bar anymore. It was a place where lines had been drawn, where strength had been redefined, where pride had been broken, where respect had been reborn. As the night carried on, music slowly crept back in, laughter cautiously returned, and the world outside kept spinning. But no one in that room would ever forget what they had witnessed, because sometimes it takes just one person, calm, steady, unshaken, to remind everyone of what truly matters. And that night, in a small-town bar under flickering neon lights, a simple woman with a Marine Corps tattoo did exactly that.